responsibility more on the growth of the tribunals, growth of the ICC, as to whether or not these are being viewed more as a selective prosecution. Are they truly being seen as effective to use
all of this money in the names of dollars of this court?
Two of the charges of every indictee before I signed them. As I've stated publicly before, I did not want to see these individuals see the light of a free day again, not because of due process and the rule of law, but the issue related to you can't do something, you can't charge people with these very grievous crimes, and these people are bad people. Because if they're released or allowed or not guilty, then they'll come back, and that causes incredible instability. So you have to also be very mindful that you just don't charge and move forward. Be very careful to make sure that at least in some of the charges, they were charged with many charges, but at least on two of them minimally before I signed, there had to be beyond a reasonable doubt each and every element of the crime. Now the investigation and the indictment expands and changes over time. These are complicated cases, but to ensure that at the end of the day, which has now been the end of the day, that we don't have people walking because you didn't do your job, that you weren't able to prove that you charged something that was beyond your ability to actually prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So there's many, many factors in there. Another thing is, one of his defenses, of course, was it was my fault. He called me many times redneck racist, and it was because I do not like black people that he was actually being persecuted by David Crane, and that's on the record.
Why did you do that then?
I won't comment.
We've asked that a lot of times.
The court, and of course where the trial was and the outreach. Really one of the most gratifying moments that I've had in my long time in Sierra Leone. But in the time I was there was the day that Charles Taylor came to Sierra Leone and came into the court. Because of course there are a lot of went around. First he was in Nigeria, then suddenly he was out of sight, no one knew where he was, and then suddenly they found him sneaking across the border into Cameroon. All stories I have some questions about, but at any rate, he was transferred to Monrovia, to Roberts Airfield, put on unmanned helicopter. Actually, one helicopter and three helicopters came, one of those deals where you didn't know for sure which helicopter he was in. And they came in and landed in the court on our helipad that was just completed the day before. But he landed, and of course the helicopter shut off, and they were taking him out of the helicopter. And several of us were down there, right there where he was coming off the helicopter. And suddenly we started hearing cheering and clapping. And, none of us could, we couldn't figure out where all this was coming from. And then we were able to look out above the walls, and the houses, the buildings across the street from the court were lined with people all on top of these buildings, and even all the way around the court. And when that helicopter landed, they started cheering and clapping. Pardon?
What were they clapping for?
Because we had Taylor. Because he was there.
They weren't clapping for it.
No, they were clapping because he was coming to account for the crimes he'd been charged with. And it was quite a moment when that helicopter landed, because we didn't know all these people were out there. In fact, we didn't know until the helicopter landed if the helicopter was going to land at the court complex or the UN helicopter facility, which was a ways away. And so we didn't know if he was going to land and they were going to convoy him or where it was going to come. And so these people, when they got the word that he had been apprehended, when the word got out, they all came to the court and were all around the court facility. And just the cheering and clapping when he landed, it was quite something to see.
Well, that's a nice note to end here. Thank you, Jim. And let me ask you to thank all of our panelists.
And I'm curious as to how much did we have a substantive law in Article 3 to really go after it the way and how much that was discussed. And if we even have developed it further now, I'm curious how much for example, the prosecutions in Lebanon, this provision that interprets international law because domestically the substance of what constitutes terrorism, and then the police talk about that.
And then a more interesting question, what if the attempt to prosecute murder, because I haven't looked at Libya, but I think make a wild guess, they're not Rome Statute members, so they probably don't have, I have to check, war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide as a crime in the Rome Statute in their domestic law, so they're going to have something else in their domestic law.
So what if they decide to prosecute him for all the similar crimes against humanity going back 20 years? Because he keeps doing this. Every time there was a little mini attempt at a revolution, he would go and slaughter people the way he did this way. So and what the Libyan government has said, the new one, is we want to try him first, then we'll give it to you. If they do it that way, would that be acceptable?
I mean, I really don't know. But I think that our warrants are for this particular period. It's covering this period. And that is what the ICC has to insist on.
So
if they are not trying him for this period of the ICC warrant, then that's ICC's case.
Who gets priority at time-wise? Like, can they say, well, we're going to send him to you, but wait till we've tried him for these other crimes first? Or do you say, no, first you send him to us, and then you can try him later? How does that work?
How does it work if they have the death penalty?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, that's true.
If they try him, they convict him, they kill him, they can't give him to us.
So even though it's complementarity, in a way it's primacy. If they're going to be, right?
It's de facto.
It's primacy, yeah.
The Security Council could order him handed over,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
That would take political will and...
Speaking of the other crimes, one of the crimes that hit this part of the world, Syracuse University, which is one of our hosts, so close, was the bombing of Pan Am 103 in 1988. There was a trial in The Hague where one person was acquitted, one person, McGrahi, was convicted. The trial was set up in a way that none of it took place. So now there is a law that courts when conducting military operations.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I agree with that. I agree with focus on domestic.
Well said, but I think what you want is a public support. And the public is very, very upset when they see that these trials go on and on and on. The film that we saw of 95, still going on, the trial. And the people who are suffered are not even around to see that justice has been done. And I think something has to be done so that...